Damascus, April 1988. On the rooftop bar of the Sheraton, a Syrian colonel named Adnan Yousef orders another drink to quiet the noise in his head. Deadlines. Secrecy. A nerve agent called VX. Then a woman sits close enough to share his ashtray. She says she's Italian, an architect, here for renovation work. It sounds harmless, almost boring. But 9 months later, in a hotel suite 2 floors below, 160 pages of Syria's most protected plans will be copied in silence, while Yousef thinks he's just taking a shower. By the time he understands what love cost him, it's too late. Operation: How a female Mossad agent seduced a Syrian officer to steal chemical weapons plans. The subject is not introduced as a superhero. She's introduced as a professional liar with a reason. By the late 1980s, Israel's intelligence services had become obsessed with one nightmare scenario: neighbors acquiring unconventional weapons that erase borders and warning times. The operative at the center of this story was selected less for glamour than for discipline. She could hold a cover under pressure, build rapport without rushing, read a room like a map. Her defining skill is simple in one sentence: she can make a target feel seen, then steer what they reveal. Born in Tel Aviv in 1961, she grew up in a household where silence was survival. Her father worked for the Ministry of Defense in an unspecified capacity. At dinner, questions about his day were met with subject changes. By age 14, she had learned that some conversations never happened. That skill would become operational currency. Intelligence recruiters approached her during mandatory military service in 1979. She was 21 when she entered the training facility known only as the Midrasha. Associates described her as methodical, never impulsive. The psychological evaluations noted something else. She could compartmentalize without detaching, feel empathy without losing control. In intelligence work, that combination is rare. By 1986, she had completed assignments in 3 European capitals. Nothing that made headlines, everything that built her file. The Mossad's research department, responsible for human intelligence operations, had been tracking her performance metrics. Success rate on rapport establishment, time to target vulnerability, ability to exit cleanly. She scored in the 97th percentile on sustained cover maintenance. That number mattered because the Damascus operation would require 9 months of unbroken performance. 9 months where a single inconsistency could trigger Syrian counterintelligence. 9 months where she would be alone. Colonel Adnan Yousef is the perfect contradiction. Outwardly controlled, inwardly exhausted. He's a chemical corps officer living inside a regime built on fear. He seeks the one place that feels normal. A hotel bar where no one salutes him and the music is loud enough to drown out guilt. Syrian intelligence files from this period reveal Yousef joined the military in 1974. He rose through conventional artillery before lateral transfer to the Scientific Studies and Research Center in 1983. That organization's bland name masked its actual function: development and production of chemical weapons. By 1988, Yousef held the rank of colonel and oversaw production scheduling for VX stockpiles at a facility near Damascus. Intercepted communications from March 1988 reveal Yousef discussing his daughter's university entrance exams with his wife. Analysts noted nothing operationally relevant. His daughter wanted to study medicine. He worried about the cost. When the operation's consequences occurred, she would be 23 years old and in her final year of medical school. The tuition had already been paid. What made Yousef valuable wasn't his rank. It was his access. He walked freely between the planning directorate and the production facility. He carried documents home for review. He knew delivery schedules, storage locations, and personnel rotations. Everything Israeli intelligence needed existed inside his head and briefcase. What made him vulnerable was simpler. He was lonely. The strategy behind operations like this isn't action movie logic. It's access engineering. The doctrine is straightforward. If you can't penetrate a bunker, penetrate the person who walks in and out of it. Syrian counterintelligence in 1988 operated under a simple assumption. Foreign intelligence services would try to recruit Syrian officers through ideological appeals, financial incentives, or blackmail. They watched for unusual contacts. They monitored travel patterns. They tracked unexplained wealth. What they didn't effectively guard against was organic relationship development that looked like chance. A lonely officer meeting a foreign civilian in a third-party space where both had legitimate reasons to be present. No dead drops, no mysterious phone calls, just two people sharing drinks and conversation. Over months until dependency replaced caution. Israel's research department called this the intimacy vector strategy. The logic was straightforward. Humans reveal secrets to people they trust, and trust is built through consistent, non-threatening interaction over time. Syria's chemical program was protected by layers. Military police controlled facility access. Internal security monitored communications. Compartmentalization ensured even senior officers knew only their specific domain. And the culture itself was the final barrier. Asking the wrong question could end a career or a life. The obstacles were brutal. Damascus ran one of the most paranoid counterintelligence environments in the Middle East. Foreign nationals were tracked. Hotels reported guest activities. Even Syrian citizens faced surveillance. The target's own training made him suspicious. He had been taught to recognize recruitment attempts, to watch for pattern breaks, to trust no one. Then there was the problem of proof. Even if Yousef talked, conversation doesn't give coordinates. It doesn't provide facility layouts or production schedules or delivery timelines. The intelligence needed was on paper. Getting him to talk was phase one. Getting him to share documents was the mission. Despite these challenges, planners identified an opportunity. Yousef had become a creature of habit. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, he arrived at the Sheraton rooftop bar between 2000 and 2200 hours. He always sat in the same section. He always ordered the same drink, and he always came alone. Habit is what intelligence services feed on. By March 1988, all elements would be in position. But first, the operative needed an unbreakable legend that could survive Syrian scrutiny. The cover wasn't just a fake passport. It was a life that could be audited. The operative arrived in Damascus as Francesca Bellini, an architectural consultant attached to a minor Italian firm. The company existed. It had completed projects in Jordan and Lebanon. Its financial records were clean. The Damascus assignment was real enough. A minor renovation contract for a government office building. Small enough not to attract state-level attention. Real enough that hotel staff and contractors could verify her presence. The legend included specific components. An employer whose receptionist would confirm her employment if called. A backstory centered on Bologna, a city she had actually visited extensively during training. A social profile that fit the hotel ecosystem. Polite, cultured, international, not political. Her Italian was native level. The accent matched Bologna precisely. She carried business cards with a working phone number that routed to a cutout office in Rome. She had photographs of her fictional family. She knew the streets of her supposed neighborhood. She could describe her favorite restaurant and what she ordered there. The infrastructure built around her included 3 constraints: Keep contact deniable. Keep communications quiet. Keep the operative psychologically stable across months. A small external support cell operated from a safe house in East Beirut. They handled logistics and risk monitoring. They never appeared as a team, never created visible patterns. The operative was the spear tip. Everyone else was background noise. Specific operational parameters were established. The target file was labeled Cedar 7 in internal communications. Meeting windows were structured around Yousef's routine. Midweek late evenings and one weekend slot. Habit reduces unpredictability, but increases exposure. Every repeated pattern creates vulnerability for both sides. Communication with handlers occurred once weekly through a brush pass at a specific market stall. The operative never carried anything that couldn't be explained. No encryption devices, no suspicious equipment. If arrested, her hotel room would reveal exactly what it should. An Italian consultant, living temporarily in Damascus. The real setup, though, was emotional. She would not seduce him with speed. She would seduce him with permission. Permission to speak without rank, to confess without consequence, to feel admired without fear. In a police state, that feeling is a narcotic. Within 6 weeks, the operation entered its execution phase. The rooftop bar opened at 1900 hours every evening. The operative had been in Damascus for 3 weeks. The window was measured in months, not days. But every operation begins with one moment, one conversation, one lie told well enough to become truth. On April 9th, 1988. At 20:45 hours, Colonel Adnan Yousef climbed the stairs to the Sheraton rooftop bar. The elevator made him uncomfortable. Too enclosed, too many mirrors. He preferred the stairs. The operative had been seated for 30 minutes, positioned where she could see the entrance but appear absorbed in architectural sketches. The sketches were real work, which is part of maintaining the cover. She had learned that the best lies are built on scaffolding of truth. Yousef took his usual seat, 3 tables away. The server knew his order. Scotch, neat Syrian cigarettes. He lit one before the drink arrived. The ritual was identical to Tuesday, identical to the previous Thursday. Intelligence analysts call this behavioral anchoring. It makes people predictable. Predictability creates opportunities. The operative waited 18 minutes, long enough to seem unnatural. She was sketching the roofline when her lighter failed. She made the frustration visible, but not theatrical. Yousef noticed. He walked over with his lighter. The exchange took 11 seconds. She thanked him in accented Arabic. He replied in English. Testing. Assessing. She switched to English, introduced herself as Francesca. Italian. Here for work. The conversation lasted 8 minutes. She asked no questions about him, only answered his questions about herself. The lies flowed, naturally. The architectural firm, the renovation project, how Damascus surprised her, how the city was more beautiful than she expected. What Yousef didn't know was that every word had been rehearsed. The pauses, the smile patterns, the moments of seeming uncertainty designed to signal authenticity. When he returned to his table, she returned to her sketches. No prolonged engagement, no eagerness, just a pleasant exchange between strangers. The pattern repeated Thursday, April 14th. Same bar, same time. He arrived, she was already present. This time he approached her table directly, asked if he could join her. She appeared pleased, but not overeager. They talked for 33 minutes. He revealed he worked for the government, but didn't specify which department. She didn't ask. That restraint was calculated. People who ask too many questions trigger defenses. People who listen create comfort. By April 20th, The relationship had shifted to expectation. He looked for her when he entered. She saved him a seat. They shared an ashtray. The conversations expanded. His stress about work, generic complaints, nothing classified. Her supposed frustrations with Syrian bureaucracy slowing her permits. Shared grievances create bonds. Complications hit in early May. May 3rd, 2112 hours. Yousef arrived already tense. His eyes scanned faces. He spotted someone he recognized, a man in civilian clothes, 3 tables away. Yousef made brief eye contact with the operative, finished his drink quickly, left without explanation. She understood immediately. Counterintelligence, either coincidence or surveillance. The operation's first crisis point. She remained calm, continued her sketches, left 20 minutes later. The next evening, she didn't go to the bar. Operational protocol. Break pattern after potential compromise. Give time for assessment. If Yousef was under investigation, her absence might save both of them. If it was coincidence, the break would seem natural. May 10, she returned. Yousef was there. The relief on his face was genuine. He apologized for leaving abruptly. "Family matter," he said. She accepted without questions. They resumed their routine. But the operative noticed something had changed. He was testing her. Small inconsistencies in her story. Questions about Bologna, about specific streets she should know, about her supposed university. She didn't flinch. She described the Piazza Maggiore in precise detail. The way afternoon light hit the basilica, the cafe where she studied, the street market on Saturdays. Every detail was accurate because she had walked those streets during preparation. She passed his test without knowing it was happening. That's the definition of deep cover. The legend is so complete that testing it reinforces it. Over the next month, the relationship evolved. From flirtation to routine. From routine to dependency. The moment the operation crossed the point of no return came in late June. June 23rd, 118 hours. The bar was crowded. A minor diplomatic reception spilled over from the hotel conference room. Yousef arrived to find no available tables. The operative saw his discomfort. She was seated with space. She gestured him over. He joined her, grateful. During the evening, a drunk European made a crude comment, loud enough to embarrass. The operative stood, spoke in rapid Italian. The translation was deliberately unclear, but her tone was unmistakable, defending Yousef's dignity. The drunk left. Yousef later asked what she said. She smiled, told him it wasn't repeatable in polite company. He felt protected. That moment bonded them more than weeks of conversation. Intelligence analysts reviewing the case file later noted this as the trust threshold, the point where the target began using the operative as a private mirror, where he started revealing fragments not to impress, but to confess. July brought subtle escalations. He mentioned production schedules, not classified details, just complaints, deadlines, pressure, impossible timelines. She listened, sympathized, never pushed for details. The operational rule was absolute. Never request documents first. Let the target offer. August 4th, he brought something to show her. A technical manual, unclassified, about industrial chemistry. He wanted her opinion on a translation. She reviewed it, offered thoughts, gave the manual back. The act itself mattered more than the content. He had shown her something from work. The boundary had been crossed. By mid-August, he was discussing his colleagues, their incompetence, their political maneuvering. He described one director as a fool who understood politics, but not science. He talked about safety shortcuts that terrified him. the way production quotas overrode proper procedures. These weren't classified revelations, but they were confessions, and confessions create vulnerability. During this phase, the operative experienced what handlers call legend drift, the psychological blurring when false identity feels more real than the original. She caught herself thinking in Italian, responding to Francesca without pause. She had favorite meals at specific Damascus restaurants. She knew the hotel staff by name. She had routines that weren't cover. They were life. One evening in late August, she walked past a shop window, saw her reflection. For 3 seconds, she didn't recognize her operational self. She saw Francesca Bellini, the consultant, the woman falling for a lonely officer. In the post-operation debrief, psychologists would note this as a predictable stress response. Deep cover operatives often experience identity fragmentation after 60 days of sustained performance. The human brain struggles to maintain two complete selves simultaneously. The mission protocol was clear. Notice the drift, acknowledge it, continue the operation. She did. September brought the opening she needed. September 12th, 2100 hours. Yousef arrived agitated. A colleague had been arrested, accusations of corruption likely fabricated. The arrest was about internal politics, about eliminating rivals. He was frightened. His position at the facility made him visible. Visibility in Syria could be fatal. She listened, let him vent. When he finished, she asked a simple question. Was he safe? He didn't know. The uncertainty was eating him. She touched his hand, told him she worried about him. The touch lasted 4 seconds. Long enough to matter, short enough to seem spontaneous. That night changed everything. He started calling her from work. Brief calls, checking in. The calls were monitored. He knew that. He called anyway. The need for connection outweighed caution. October 8th, he invited her to dinner. Not at the hotel, a restaurant across Damascus. She accepted. They ate. They talked. Afterward, he walked her back to the Sheraton. At the entrance, he kissed her. She kissed him back. The operation had entered its terminal phase. By late October, their relationship had structure. Tuesday and Thursday at the bar. Sunday dinners. Occasional calls. He gave her a key to his apartment. She never used it without him present. Operational security. No unauthorized access. No creating evidence. Everything had to appear organic. November 3rd, during dinner, he mentioned a deadline. A major inventory review scheduled for November 28th. He was stressed. The paperwork alone was overwhelming. 160 pages of facility documentation, production records, safety inspections, storage manifests. Everything needed to be perfect. One error could trigger an investigation. She sympathized, asked if he needed help. He laughed. It was classified material. She couldn't help. She didn't push. Just offered to make the process less lonely. To be there while he worked, even if she couldn't see the documents. He considered the offer. November 18th, 2330 hours. Damascus. The Sheraton Hotel. Suite 614. The final encounter was staged as normal. No drama, no urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. The operative had arranged the suite 2 weeks earlier, supposedly because her room needed repairs. The hotel staff confirmed the story. The suite was larger, more comfortable, more private. Yousef arrived at 2200 hours. Dinner had been pleasant. Wine, conversation, the usual rhythm. Back at the suite, she made coffee. They sat on the couch. He was carrying his briefcase, the inventory paperwork. He apologized. He needed to review it tonight. The deadline was close. She told him it was fine. She had reading to do. They could work in comfortable silence. That's what made them work, she said. They didn't need constant entertainment. They could just exist together. He relaxed. The statement reinforced what he wanted to believe, that this relationship was real, that someone understood him. At 2318 hours, he opened the briefcase. 160 pages. Facility, layouts, production schedules, personnel rosters, storage coordinates, delivery timelines. Everything Israeli intelligence had been unable to access through signals intelligence or satellite reconnaissance. He spread the documents across the desk. Started working. She settled into a chair with a book. The book was real. An Italian novel. She turned pages, appeared absorbed. The performance was critical. Normalcy, routine. Nothing to trigger alarm. At 2343 hours, he stood, stretched, mentioned taking a shower. The flight to the inspection site was early. He wanted to sleep well. She nodded, kept reading. He gathered his toiletries, headed to the bathroom. The door closed. Water began running. The operative gave him 30 seconds, ensuring commitment. Then she moved. She didn't rush. Rushing creates errors. She photographed each page using a Minox camera concealed in a lipstick case. The camera was designed for exactly this scenario. Silent operation. High resolution. Reliable mechanics. Each page required 2 seconds. Frame, click, advance, frame, click, advance. The rhythm was mechanical. 320 clicks, 160 pages, front and back. The water continued running. He was a methodical showerer. Intelligence analysts had predicted 12 to 15 minutes based on behavioral observation. She had 7 minutes elapsed when the first page was photographed. 14 minutes when the last page was completed. She returned every page to exact position. The order mattered. The orientation mattered. Yousef would notice if a single page was reversed. She checked the desk surface for impressions, for moved objects. Everything matched the mental map she had created before he stood. At 14 minutes, 38 seconds, the water stopped. She was back in her chair, book open to the correct page, breathing controlled, pulse elevated but manageable. When he emerged, towel around his waist, she glanced up, smiled, asked if he felt better. He did. He returned to the desk, worked another 30 minutes. She never looked at the documents, never showed interest. The performance required absolute discipline. By 042 hours, he had finished his review. He packed the documents carefully, locked the briefcase. They went to bed. She performed tenderness at the exact moment she had done something that might later get him killed. That's where the real operation happened, inside the operative, where the human part was ordered to stand down. November 19th, 0800 hours. She manufactured a crisis, a phone call, supposedly from Rome. Her sister, a family emergency, medical details, urgent. She needed to return immediately. Yousef was sympathetic, concerned. He drove her to the airport. They embraced. She promised to call, to return when things settled. The story was simple, emotional, hard to interrogate without appearing cruel. At Damascus International Airport, she boarded Alitalia Flight 342 to Rome. The film canister was concealed in a modified lipstick tube inside her checked luggage. Cosmetics rarely received detailed inspection. Female travelers were often waved through with cursory checks. The flight departed at 1100 on 20 hours. By 1330 hours, the operative was in Roman airspace. By 1800 hours, the film was being processed in a secure facility in Tel Aviv. By 2200 hours, analysts were reviewing 160 pages of Syria's chemical weapons infrastructure. Colonel Adnan Yousef spent November 20th trying to call Francesca Bellini in Bologna. The number rang. The cutout office answered. They confirmed a family emergency. They couldn't provide details. Privacy concerns. He understood. He called 3 more times over the next week. Each time the story remained consistent. Eventually, he stopped calling. He returned to work. Completed his inventory review. Everything was in order. Nothing missing. Nothing suspicious. He had no reason to believe anything had gone wrong. That was the final cruelty of the operation. The target was left with a heartbreak narrative, not a breach narrative. Immediately, nothing happened. That silence was the proof. No arrests, no interrogations, no visible breach response. Yousef remained a trusted officer. His security clearance unchanged, his access uninterrupted. The system didn't know what to look for because nothing was missing. The copy and return methodology had worked precisely as designed. Missing documents trigger security reflexes faster than rumor. But perfect returns trigger nothing. By December 1988, Israeli intelligence had completed analysis of the material. The haul included detailed facility layouts for 3 production sites, personnel rotations, storage coordinates for VX stockpiles, delivery schedules to forward deployment areas, security protocols, emergency procedures. Everything needed to transform assumptions into actionable intelligence. Strategically, the effect was asymmetric. Syria still possessed its chemical weapons, but Israel now possessed the knowledge to neutralize them if required. Satellite reconnaissance could now target specific buildings. Communications intercepts could be matched against known personnel. Future strikes could be planned with precision rather than probability. What happened next remains classified, but open source analysis suggests several outcomes. In 1990, a mysterious explosion destroyed a chemical production building near Damascus. Official Syrian media blamed industrial accident. No casualties reported. Israeli sources maintained careful silence. In 1992, 3 senior Chemical Corps officers were quietly retired. No explanation given. In 2007, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a facility in Deir ez-Zor. The target's exact nature remains disputed, but the strike occurred with 0 warning and surgical precision. Whether these events connect to one hotel suite in November 1988 cannot be confirmed. But the intelligence chain of causality is clear. You cannot strike what you cannot locate. You cannot locate what you cannot identify. You cannot identify without intelligence. And sometimes that intelligence comes from a briefcase left unguarded for 14 minutes. The unintended consequences followed predictable patterns. Syrian counterintelligence tightened protocols. Foreign nationals faced increased scrutiny. Hotel staff were interrogated about guest behaviors. Internal security conducted reviews of officer social patterns. The regime learned from its invisible wound, even without knowing exactly where it had been cut. For Colonel Adnan Yousef, the investigation never came. He was never arrested, never interrogated, never accused. He lived with heartbreak, not suspicion. Whether he ever understood what had happened remains unknown. Whether he connected his Italian architect to subsequent events is speculation. What is certain is that he continued his service, continued his access. And if he ever questioned why Francesca Bellini never returned, he questioned alone. The moral calculus is where complexity lives. From one perspective, this operation represents prevention, intelligence that could stop chemical horror before it spreads, weapons that could kill thousands neutralized through knowledge rather than warfare. The operative didn't pull a trigger. She turned pages. If those pages prevented even one VX attack, the mathematics seemed straightforward. From another perspective, its exploitation distilled to purest form. Weaponizing trust, manufacturing intimacy, letting a target walk forward into consequences he never consented to understand. Yousef was a chemical weapons officer, but he was also a father worried about tuition, a lonely man seeking human connection. The operation consumed both versions of him without distinguishing between them. The question cuts deeper than simple morality. If a covert operation can prevent mass casualties but requires ruining one person's life through systematic deception, does the outcome justify the method? Or does the method poison the victory? The answer reveals more about your framework than about the operation itself. Consequentialists see prevented deaths. Deontologists see violated dignity. Realists see necessary evil. Idealists see corruption of means. None of these perspectives is objectively wrong. All of them are incomplete. What remains factual is this: intelligence work operates in spaces where traditional ethics break down, where the choice isn't between right and wrong, but between terrible and worse, where the people making decisions carry the weight of both outcomes, the lives saved and the lives destroyed. For the operative, the cost was measured differently. She returned to normal assignments, completed additional operations, but the legend drift never fully resolved. Part of her remained Francesca Bellini, the woman who loved a Syrian colonel, the woman who betrayed him. Deep cover creates permanent ghosts. You can leave the operation, but the operation never fully leaves you. What's your perspective on this calculation? If you were responsible for preventing chemical attacks, would you authorize an operation like this? Does strategic necessity justify intimate deception? Or are some methods too corrosive to employ regardless of outcome? Drop your take in the comments. If this story made you reconsider the hidden costs of security, hit that like button and share. Intelligence history isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just two people in a hotel bar, and one of them is lying about everything.